But one person who might be interested to hear what's going to come in that report is former Vice President Mike Pence. Now, Mike Pence was actually mentioned in the Georgia indictment, not as one of the indicted co-conspirators and probably not even as one of the 30 unindicted co-conspirators, but Mike Pence was specifically mentioned in that indictment. So if Donald Trump has evidence that Georgia was stolen, I'm sure Mike Pence probably looked like a fool, like, oh no, why didn't I reject the electors, right? But what gets me about Mike Pence being mentioned in the indictment is the fact that the mention of Pence and all of the plans they said that were told to Mike Pence completely dismantles a statement Mike Pence made this past weekend on NBC's Meet the Press with host Chuck Todd. This past Sunday on Meet the Press, Mike Pence said that he didn't recall whether or not Donald Trump or anyone in the White House had ever told him about the plan to use the fake electors. I mean, that's what he said over and over. I don't recall. He said, I don't recall that. I just remember hearing it in the public. Like, I don't know if they told me they had a fake elector plan or not. Blows my mind, right? I just heard it in the news. Here's the thing. The indictment in Georgia completely tells us that Mike Pence is lying. Because this indictment mentions several different specific moments, date and time stamps, of when Mike Pence was personally confronted in the Oval Office. They've got text messages, they've got memos, they've got handwritten notes of all the times Mike Pence was there being told about the plan, send these electors back and use these instead. Throw out the votes in Fulton County so that way then we win Georgia, so we need the alternate electors. That is in the indictment. So Mike Pence's claim to Chuck Todd, I don't recall if I was ever told about the plan, that's a lie. Now, I'm not suggesting that Mike Pence is in on the plan. I firmly believe that Mike Pence is obviously not in on the plan. But there's a reason. There has to be a reason why he would tell Chuck Todd, I don't recall being told about the plan. And I think the reason is because Mike Pence has been working with prosecutors, not necessarily in Georgia, but with Jack Smith. Because that phrase, I don't recall, is the typical line that a lawyer will tell their client to use in a situation like that, specifically when talking to the press about pending litigation. I don't recall. It's much better than saying no comment or saying I can't speak to that, because it leaves it ambiguous. Ambiguous enough to where you're not giving away the game while you're talking to the press, but then also enough clearance to go back into court when it's time for you to testify and say, oh, now I remember. That's right. Here's the way it all happened. The Georgia indictments, again, blow Pence's statement out of the water. It's not true because they've got the documentation showing that Mike Pence had been fully aware and refused to go along with the plan for the fake electors. So the only reason I can think of why he would be dishonest, or not completely honest even, with Chuck Todd is because he has to keep his powder dry. He could be working with the prosecution. He will likely be called as a witness at the trial. And his lawyers have said, you don't want to give up the game. You don't want the other side to know what you're going to say. You don't want them to know what you've got. Prosecutors don't want you to do that. So we need you to pretend like you know nothing until it comes time to talk in front of that jury. That's my theory on that, because again, his statement on Sunday, completely contradicted by the indictment on Monday, and I think there's a lot more to that than we realize.